So we're checking in for the official event here. As you can see, leadership conference is taking place. It's all on the steps. So come along with us as we go through this process. Shout out to the Skillman Foundation for showing so much love. We truly appreciate this opportunity. Maybe next year we bring a whole bunch. I know this is going to be amazing. It's already been off the charts. See you soon. Just as this thing is going, there's getting ready to be a main event tonight. I'm really trying to see. I think I'm gonna go down there and see what we can see and who we can see. Check back in. And yes, as we prepare, we're exiting the evening. This is an extraordinary view. Great space to be in. We're looking forward to tomorrow. It's dinner time. All right, it's day one. First workshop. Going in, we already met some more doers. Last night was eventful. And it's beautiful. We ready to roll. You don't have to. All right, we rocking and rolling. All right, day one.
And in an effort to create more pathways to home ownership and help families leave lasting legacies and maybe even put a dent in homelessness, we are thrilled to announce that the tiny home on display in the expo will be given away to a deserving individual or family. Come on, make some noise. We're going to give it away. And you need to check it out. It's awesome. It's incredible. Thank you, Jesus. And no, we're not going to give it to your son who's sleeping on your couch at 40 so that you can have your house to yourself. We're going to give it to somebody who really needs that. Can't say amen, say ouch. I take this so seriously, all jokes aside. 12,000 years ago, Göbekli Tepe was an area that we found the first remains of prehistoric walls that pre-existed the times that we're living in now. So this notion of walls has been done not only in Berlin, but it's been done all over the world to incarcerate us. There are 5 major cities I talk about in my book that built exalted highways that were airborne, that encircled repressed neighborhoods. And it looks like a simple thing, and it looks like traffic management, but it was designed to keep those neighborhoods impoverished. Yes. So that all the commerce in the city drives by those areas without exit ramps to access those areas. The businesses asphyxiated and begin to die. This was not a mistake. It was a setup. It was a strategy. And I'll prove it to you because in every city where the walls came down and the highways were leveled, the economy splurged into the dry areas and began to do with it what happened in Katrina. What happened in Katrina wasn't the intensity of the storm, it was the shattering of the levee. Anytime a dam breaks, everything that's held back begins to flood through. I don't know who I'm talking to, but the walls that have been built around you and your church and your business and your economics are strategically in place to keep you in a place of repression. That's the bad news. But the good news is you are a chosen generation.
Yes.
Under your leadership, every high place God is about to bring down. Your diligence is about to bring down. Your education is about to bring down. Your strategy is about to bring down. You think God put you in that position to make money? You can make money anywhere.
That's right.
You're planted in that position so that you can have influence to bring about radical change.
Come on.
To change your generation. You are the Joshua generation. You have been selected to break down the walls that your parents live with. The devil is a lie. Who am I talking to today? Every wall that stood up that we've been getting along with, that we've been shutting down to, is about to come down. You got to get rid of your old weapon. You can't fight a new war with old weapons. Your sword will not work in this environment. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringeth every thought into captivity unto the obedience of Christ. I need some radical people. I need some revolutionary people. I need some people that are willing to get their hands dirty. I need some people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired and made up your mind. I'm not going to stop until it comes down. Are you in the house? Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. I don't want to hear nobody. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. But I feel something creeping up my spine. Going all the way up my back. Going all the way up through my vertebrae. Going up through my cells. Getting into my tissues and my joints. I'm about to tear something down. And it's going to crumble this morning so that you have freedom the rest of the week. Shout it! So there are three things that this story comes to teach us. Whether allegory or reality, there are three things that we can extract from the story that causes us to have sustenance and substance that is relevant for the fight we fight today. Number one is parameters. We got to understand how to deal with the parameters. The parameters. The exalted highways. The fences. The barriers. The restrictions that restrict you because of what you look like, or because of your gender, or because of your age, or because of your stage. You got to understand the parameter before you can correct it. Number two, it teaches us that Joshua leads during a paradigm shift. And you are called to lead in the biggest shift that we have seen in the last 200-300 years. The shift that's about to happen in your life is going to be such a paradigm shift that all the rules of your yesterday have not prepared you for your. So I got to disrupt your thinking lest you fight today's battle with yesterday's weapon. Or yes, you try to feed off of yesterday's bread, which is too wormy for the paradigm shift you're in right now. So it comes to teach us about parameters. It comes to teach us about paradigms. And finally, it comes to teach us about paralysis. Anytime you are left with parameters, walls of restriction, there will eventually come paralysis. Whether it's economic paralysis, emotional paralysis will inevitably be wherever things stop to flow. All I have to do to kill my finger is wrap a string around it. And it will turn brown. Well, it's already brown. It'll turn black. I forgot it. It will turn black and fall off. You don't have to cut it off. Just block it off. I was thinking about boundaries. We have boundaries in every relationship, friendships, connections, business relationships. Stop treating your business relationships like they're personal friends.
That's right.
They couldn't tell your business if you didn't tell it to them in the first place. They're not your friends, they're your co-workers. Put some boundaries in place.
That's right.
The one place where you don't need boundaries is where we are most apt to put them up, in our own house. And there we are in a situation with somebody that we live with but don't talk to. And what the text teaches us about personal relationships is marriage is the one place where you're supposed to be able to let your guard down and become one. And that is also the one place that we most often have the highest walls.
Yes, sir.
Ooh, y'all got quiet. Y'all were shouting. What happened to the shout? Y'all were doing good. That means you can be sitting with, sleeping with, and even having intimate relationships with somebody that you have a wall up that they cannot even see. And there you are. You got a promise and a problem in the same situation. So the promise is on the other side of the wall, and the wall is the problem. And the wall can be a silent wall. These are the people who talked on the phone till they ran out of words.
Yeah.
These are the people who ran home from work to tell her all kinds of stuff, and they've lost speech. And the silence was like a barricade between them. And I didn't know them, but I saw them, and I knew immediately there is a wall between you. Have you ever had a wall between you and your child?
So we just finished our opening with TD Jakes, and what a powerful message. Tear down walls. Let's go.
Share in money failure. We're going to talk about needs and wants, and we'll get into more of that later on. So I had a need that I wanted, but it really wasn't a need. So I was out on the lake with some friends a few years ago, many years ago. Hadn't been married very long, didn't have a lot of money, and my friend had a boat. It's an amazing weekend on the water. We get back home, there's a boat show the next weekend. You know where this is going. I bought a boat. Woo! It was the worst financial decision of my and my husband's life ever. But I'll tell you, we learned a lesson from that. We bought this boat. I ended up getting pregnant with my first child, so we could never use the boat. The boat sat in dry dock for 2 years. So I'm like, okay, let's sell the boat. Oh wait, you're upside down. That means you owe more than it's worth.
To be in person again. There's something about having the presence of each other that creates a new sense of energy, and so I'm trying to avoid my money failure conversation.
It's not gonna work. Come on.
I was fresh out of school, my first job, and I needed a car, but I wanted a sports car. And so, against my father's advice, I bought this cute little sports car. It was not new, it was a used one, and it was very used, I found out later. Had tons of car problems with it. Who hates car problems? Oh, right on. So I had my student loans, I had a car payment on a car that didn't run and was not going to run, and I had to get a new car. So I had 2 car payments.
And this is what happened. A friend of mine calls me, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and says, hey, meet me down at the Santa Monica hangar at the Santa Monica airport. There's an interesting event happening with a really smart guy who's developing a new car. I said, fantastic. So I go down, I said, this sounds interesting. End up talking to this guy. They have this prototype of this electric car. Talk to this guy, Elon Musk, at length. And we're talking about the car, and he's like, man, I'm launching this company called Tesla. You should get one of these. And I said, this car's beautiful. I'll get one. And so I was the 82nd person. I was car number 82. Now watch what I'm about to say. If I would have taken that same amount of money that I would have taken to get car number 82 and just bought the stock, I would own this whole convention center.
Yeah, you would.
So we have to remember that consuming things like Nike shoes, Tesla automobiles, etc., we should own the company and own the stock before we own the product.
Yes, sir.
And I learned that the hard way.
Because we use it as a tool, right? A convenience oftentimes. And it goes back to, if you look back at the itemization of the statement, how much of it is wants versus needs. And it's good to have that access to credit. It's just how we use it. But it is about having a disciplined budget and sticking to it. One of the things that we oftentimes talk about too is that there really are not any get-rich strategies out there. And if there are, we should be walking away from them if we know there's.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Because unfortunately, that can create a level of vulnerability for us, right? And having that disciplined plan, kind of to set it and forget it.
So Beth, you're saying I shouldn't play the lotto?
I play the lotto. It's an entertainment.
Entertainment. That's part of the entertainment budget.
Don't play for your whole check.
That goes for the entertainment budget.
Your
Okay.
whole check there, but it's entertainment.
Like I said earlier, every dollar should have a name. And if you're just, when you go back through that credit card statement and you're like, oh, I went to Starbucks 10 times last month. Oh, I went to Chipotle. Well, maybe you should make your own coffee, because I'll tell you, if you do it at home, it does taste better. And if you bring your lunch, it's the little things. There's no.
Now I own a coffee shop in Detroit,
Well,
so don't do that if you live in Detroit. You come down to Roasting Plant, downtown Detroit, right off Woodward and Campus Marshals, and we have the best fresh roasted coffee. You can't make it at home. But if you live anywhere else, you should make it at home.
you're not helping.
I just have to say this. When we were preparing for today, Angela and I, we're two bankers, and we're kind of boring most of the time, right? And I'm boring, you're not, right? But when we hung up the phone with Will, we said, this is just going to go the way it's going to go.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
We love it.
A couple of things that Hill spoke about, and everybody on the panel has talked about, right? Dollar cost averaging, being consistent, right? There's no instant gratification. So everybody wants to do nothing against Bitcoin. I'm sure there's money to be made in it. The way you make money is consistency and long term, and you got to stick with the plan. Like Hill is talking about. At the end of the day, set it up every month, go in there consistently, every single month. And I think that's one of the better ways to do it. There are other ways, obviously, but that's one of the better ways. And we were also talking about just a general approach, right? Talking about coffee, things like that. Look at your spending. We talked about the itemized budget. Look at your checking account. Look at your credit card statement. One of the things my wife always says, the way to budget, don't spend more than you make, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. So
But let's talk about real quick. I know we're coming to an end, but there's so many of us in here that have side jobs. We're entrepreneurs. We want to start different businesses. And that's something to think about too. Investing in yourself ultimately and investing in a business. But when you do it, set it up properly. You know, billions of dollars were not collected from our community because most of us have these solopreneur 1099 businesses, so we couldn't get the PPP money. So if we actually would have set up our entities properly, we could have gotten access to that billions and billions of dollars. And so making sure that from the outset, you're setting up your business in a way that you can take advantage of what's out there for you is very important. And that goes back to getting really good advice and having advice.
Exactly. We're getting to the end. I got a question. One more question for you, Hill. Describe what you see as the greatest barrier to Black and Latino families intentionally investing in their future.
To me, the greatest barrier has to do with what we talked about right at the beginning, and that's mindset. It's about so many of us have so much fear around money and about the fragility of money and not having it. And so we want to make sure that we have this cash money mentality, we have access to it. Because what happens if something really bad happens? We got to be able to access it, whether you want to call it shoebox money, mattress money, or you just hold it cash in an account. I know so many friends, they refuse to do anything but put their money into like 6-month CDs. Because they're like, what happens? Something's going to happen in 6 months. Rather than having actually a 10-year wealth horizon for an asset class. And saying, I'm going to put money away that I will not need to touch for 10 years. And it allows me to think differently about the money. It also allows me to approach it differently. Those steps are critical because at the end of the day, getting started with that dollar cost averaging, that regular savings with an asset class where you're not going to touch it, you don't need to touch it, and you leave it alone is how it starts to compound. Because the most powerful tool, I always tell people, time in the market is much more valuable than timing the market. The most valuable tool you have when it comes to money is time and compounding interest. And that's critical. And the final piece I'll say goes back to what I tell my son about these Nike shoes. Don't ever allow yourself to buy Nikes unless Nike is buying them for you. What do I mean by that? You need to own enough Nike stock that the dividend they spit out every year covers your Nike purchase.
Yes, sir.
So I don't mind having nice shoes, but Nike's actually going to pay for my shoes rather than me paying for Nikes. That makes sense. That's how, if we approach how we live in that ownership mentality, then we actually shift ourselves immediately into a different mindset. If you're going to go to Starbucks, enjoy it, unless you're in Detroit. But own Starbucks stock and allow the dividend to buy your coffee. Own Wells Fargo stock, right? This is an extremely valuable company. You're seeing all this banking fragility. They are not fragile, right? This is a solid, incredible company. Own their stock, invest in them, and then use what Wells Fargo has to offer as a resource. You can go into a branch and say, I'm an owner of this company. I own your stock. I want to leverage your expertise to help me build. They're there. And use them and use all those assets. It's very powerful.
Lovely. All right, for the next few minutes, everybody gets 2 minutes.
Of that quality in their leadership. And what role does integrity play in your own leadership? And how do you demonstrate your values to your colleagues and your team?
First off, I appreciate the question. I think integrity and trust is a huge part of why we're all in this room today and about business. So my story, I'd like to start with a man by the name of Robert Duhart Sr., my father. When I was young, he had a way of defining integrity to say, it's easy to do the right thing when everybody's looking. When you're on the stage in front of 10,000 people. But what do you do when nobody's looking? And And to me, that is what integrity has always been. That is what he always taught me. And so I think in terms of example, that leadership example at home meant something. So we talked about Atlanta, we talked about Baltimore, we talked about DC. My father's from Brooklyn, New York. And for those that know Brooklyn, my father grew up in the Red Hook housing projects. And he had a way of saying, where I'm from, son, we say word is bond. Because in our neighborhood, that's all you had was your word. And if you couldn't be trusted for that, you weren't worth anything. And so all of my integrity decisions start from that grounding. Many pastors I know love to quote a Bible verse that says, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. And I think in business, that is something that Doug McMillan, our CEO, embodies day in and day out. So look, y'all know I come from Walmart, no secret. Only been at the company 2 years. Have had a chance to spend some time with our executive leadership team. And there's a big difference between talking the talk and walking the walk. And one moment I had with Mr. McMillan was during COVID, right? And so many of you have been to Walmart stores, I'm sure. The profitable decision during COVID was to keep the doors open, make the money, and let's worry about the health stuff later. We didn't take that posture. Now, were we perfect? No. But did we make decisions that we thought prioritized our customers, our associates, and the health and well-being of this country over our wallet? We absolutely did. And I think at the end of the day, having decision-making integrity supports long-term decision-making and results versus short-term. Personally, in my job, I do technology and information security. So how many of y'all have been hacked or know somebody who's been hacked? Well, at Walmart, when we get hacked, they call me. And so in my business, my yes has to be yes, my no has to be no. And I have
to executive privileges as top secret information. Well, over the past few years, the demand for transparency has been burgeoning from customers to stakeholders and the employees. So not just companies, but the leaders within them are expected to demonstrate greater transparency. So really in their decision-making, in rewarding performance, and in the authenticity of DEI initiatives, not to mention in their relationships with stakeholders and customers and constituents. And so now I'd love each of you to speak on this greater demand of transparency and how that has changed and shaped how you lead. Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, being transparent is extremely important. I think I actually get the foundation similar to your story. Like my mom, she used to always tell me, be honest, open, and direct. Those three things are really kind of like my anchor when it comes to one, conversations, and two, how I conduct myself on an everyday basis. And if you think about it, like you have to give and it shall be given to you, right? And press down, shake it together, run it over, right? But that can go across so many, that's not just financial, that's in terms of every single type of attribute, and specifically within transparency. Anytime that you want something to be on your end, first, you have to first give. And so you have to first be able to say, okay, look, if there's a situation that's happening from the company's standpoint, we're going to address this ahead of time, so before it actually becomes a much bigger issue. Same thing when it comes to having, the hard conversations or the hard discussions. Like these are the things that actually make or break people's businesses, because oftentimes if you have an issue, in technology we call it technical debt. So imagine if you accidentally messed up on typing the code, but decided to keep on going, and you kept on coding, and then you shipped the product, but then you realized that somebody realized that one line of code actually messed up the entire system, which means you have to completely start over straight from scratch. And so if you think about that, that's what life is. The second you notice that there's a situation, that there's a thing that you need to actually bring up and address, it's always best to address it as soon as possible. And then, in all honesty, like when you're thinking about customers, you're thinking about the businesses that you're running, the people that are looking up to you, they're going to want to know the information. And being able, by having transparency, you also get that trust. And the trust is really what completes that full circle and allows people to continue to keep.
There was a time and space when folks told, there was an expectation kids were supposed to be seen and not heard. Those are gone, right? There was an expectation that workers would kind of be told what to do, and they're just going to do it, and we're going to just keep our heads down and work really hard, maybe 30 years, and move up. That's gone, right? The reality is, we are in a space and time when it's essential to be authentic and transparent, right? People read it. Customers are going to spend their money with those folks that are authentic and transparent. I think it's a huge difference also between a manager and a leader, right? And leaders will be authentic and transparent because they're not afraid, right? They're not afraid to show who they are at work and bring your whole self. And then it encourages those who are working with you, those on your team and around you, to do the same. I try to really tell my team at all times. I said we're gonna be great at being kind, right? And so that the at being kind means at is the authentic and transparent, right? I want you to come as you are, right? I want you to be able to show up and be comfortable in terms of who you are, so that you can do your job fully and wholly, right? But at the end of the day, you are not defined by your job, right? And so therefore, you should be able to come and be authentic and transparent in that way. And then the be kind piece for us is really focusing in on business execution excellence, right? Because at the end of the day, if you come in and talk to us, we should need to know what we're talking about, right? So that's the B part, right? And then the kind is, the K is around is being a knowledgeable partner, right? And so that people are coming to you and feel like you're a subject matter expert. The I is around integrated impact investment, right? How can we make sure that we are really connecting 240,000 people at Wells Fargo, multiple lines of business? How do we make sure we're doing the sausage making, and that we have integrated impact investing in a way so that when the customer comes, when our community members, our partners, our fellow citizens are coming, they're talking to me, who's at Philanthropy and Community Impact, they feel as comfortable as if they're talking to some other banker at Wells Fargo, right? And that we have each other's back because we hit that I. The N is around narrative change, and this part's important, right? Because we've had some drama at Wells Fargo, right? If you don't know, now you know, right? And so the reality, though, is that part of what you need to do is a narrative change, and you show up, right? That narrative change occurs by you helping to craft that narrative, right? By your actions being stronger than your words. Because the rhetoric and the spin only goes but so far. But if you're being authentic and transparent and you're doing the thing, then that actually changes the narrative, right? And so stop being on the defensive, but show up and really change the narrative through your actions. And then D is around dynamic collaborations. We can't do this alone. Sure, we're one of the largest banks in the U.S., but we cannot do it alone, right? We have to partner with others, especially if we're trying to be really successful. It's part of the reason why we're smart enough to partner with TD Jakes Enterprises, right? Because we recognize that there are parts and things for which we are strong and which TD Jakes Enterprises is strong. And together we can do more if we have a dynamic collaboration, right? And so that's why I would say at being kind, we want to be kind in how we show up. And I just recognize, and I want people to really firmly grab this, right? That it makes no sense to spend so much of your day at a place of employment and having to 24/7 wear a mask, right? It is depressing, it's just frustrating, it causes stress, it hurts you in terms of your family, in terms of your friends. It doesn't make sense, right? And at the end of the day, if we're going to be successful, we have to be able to be authentic and transparent, right? I love my family, I love my God, I love who I am, and so I'm going to show up at work, and if that makes you uncomfortable, it's your loss.
A group of similarly assembled folks 2 years ago to trust and repeat something after me. I'm going to ask you to do that right now. Trust and repeat after me. I have everything I need.
I have everything I need
To be everything I need to be.
I need to be.
Let's say it all together. I have everything I need to be everything I need to be.
Well, day one under the belt. Very powerful messages. Man, mind-blowing event. I have started this day out. I have to admit, I'm a much better leader than what I even gave myself credit for. And I thank God for that. Now it's just execution and excellence. We're living in an amazing time.
This donation, or if we were gonna, we thought it was important to say we're gonna focus on DE&I. And what I told people, it's not about the announcement, it's about the outcome. It's about the impact. And when we started talking, what was very clear, and I think both of us share, is we care about the impact that we're making. And the thing, and so I think to your point, one of the things I think which is just incredibly special is that we have the scale, we have the desire to make an impact. But as I said earlier, we know that we need help, we need knowledge, we need your reach, we need the things that you do that we don't know how to do. And so that is incredibly appealing to us as we think about taking the scale that we have and marrying it with all of the knowledge and the skills that you have, but knowing that we're going to get to an outcome.
Let me help you with this. I don't know what that music is, but I want it to go really bad. So somebody find it and fix it. Because I think this is very important. How many of you are enjoying this conversation?
As we close out the Leadership Conference, we are reminded that it is now that our power and that we must lead. Thank you, Skillman, for this much needed work and understanding.